Hi everyone. Today markets were relatively unchanged on the session. You can see we finished a little bit higher, pretty choppy early in the session, tested yesterday's low, ended up going to a new wick high, and then pulled back here in the after hours to some trend support. Let's see if we can find some direction. We did get the breakout, but let's see if there's anything going on underneath the hood. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Just a little bit of quick news. Microsoft unveiling their first quantum computing chip in the Majorana 1. Interesting. We'll see if they put out anything in terms of timelines. I think it'll be interesting to see if this gets the same reaction as the Google chip. Definitely interesting, at least when it comes to the future of technology. And really what they're hoping to do with this is make it available through the Azure Quantum Cloud Service. And they say here, hopefully it'll be available before 2030, so you can access it through the cloud to conduct your computations, which could be a huge driver for value within the Azure space, which is also the highest margin business within Microsoft. Moving over to fear and greed, unchanged at a 48, up from a 42 a week ago. You can see we're continuing to grind higher, momentum still neutral. Strength rolling over a little bit to the downside. Interesting. I think this was in neutral yesterday and now it's back into fear. Breadth continuing to hover at this kind of moderate level. Interesting there. Put call ratio has tanked. Interesting. 0.63 on the ratio. Extreme greed starting to show a little bit of extension to the upside. Volatility neutral here, and then safe haven demand. Extreme fear. I wonder if we're seeing bonds start to rally and outperform in the short term. Have to take a look at that later. And then junk bonds still have not moved. Even with the FOMC minutes, seems like junk bonds have held in there very well. Moving over to the economic calendar here for today, you can see 20-year bond action actually came in a little bit lower than the previous. Interesting. So we're seeing interest rates actually pull back a little bit there. Housing starts pulling back a little bit. You can see down 9.8%. Interesting. Previous number was revised up fairly substantially and also very positive. Interesting there. And then for the Thursday, Philly Fed manufacturing's the big one, not expecting a huge change out of that. And then initial jobless claims still hovering pretty much where they have been. That is the expectation. We did get the FOMC minutes today, which basically said everything we already knew. They were a little bit hesitant when it came to tariffs and the potential new policies out of the administration. So they're continuing to hold at these current levels. And then looking at Friday here, you can see a little bit of economic data, existing home sales. For January, month-over-month numbers, Michigan data, S&P, global manufacturing PMI, composite PMI, services PMI. So not a whole lot of data, not expecting much out of this, at least in the way of movement for the markets. Moving over to Max Pain, you can see Max Pain still in that 600 area. The top of the calls was around the 610 area. We'll see if we finish below that for the Friday session. Top of the puts around 613, which is pretty much where we're at already. Like I said yesterday, not expecting a whole lot more upside, at least on a closing basis for the week. Total options continues to tick up a little bit at 3.7 million, and then put call ratio still quite high at a 3.35. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps here, you can see on the day we were up about a quarter, and we gave a lot of that back already after hours. So it was only up $1.44 on the day, and then after hours were down 80 cents. So gave up about half of the day's gains. Momentum fading really. It's still stepping higher, but not by much. RSI basically flat here. You do have the potential for a short-term touch of this trend in here. That would be much, much higher. It's a really steep trend line at 617.50. I'm not expecting that by any means. But we did get above this trend line here. We did test this one and then bounce back up above that 610.87 level. So that's 2 days in a row being able to hold that after pulling back. And you can see it here on the short time frames, what that looked like. Pulled back to the trend area, pulled back to that 55 EMA, and then we did go to a higher high. So your all-time high now is 613.23 on this chart, and then we pulled back to the trend here. In the after hours, we're holding that level. We'll see if it can continue to hold or if it's going to pull back to that 610 level. For me, this is grinding price action, and I'm just not expecting it to really break higher in any kind of extended way. I think this is probably going to chop sideways. Remember, seasonally, this is not a super great time either, so I'm expecting a little bit more sideways consolidation, maybe slightly grindingly bullish over the next day or two, and then we'll see if it can continue to hold through the options expiration this Friday. And then looking at the Tasty charts here, you can see we pushed up into bullish conditions with that 1 o'clock candle, got above the trailing stop here, and then we immediately pulled back. holding that 9 EMA on the hourly chart at 612.02, and now it seems like we're going to continue to push to that second ATR band around the 613.37 area. If you hold the higher low here, then you should be expecting at least a second push to a higher high in my opinion. Then moving over here to the NASDAQ, again, very little change, just up 15 cents, 0.03%, basically unchanged, and actually after hours we're down more than 15 cents, about 30 cents there, so we'll see if it can hold. It's still holding the level. 538.28 is the level. Go ahead and extend out this trend line. We didn't quite touch it, but it is a little bit of support in there as well. You can see on the session, pulled back, hit the 55 EMA. This still looks like consolidation to me, and you can actually see here on the NASDAQ we did not make a higher high relative to the pre-market on the Tuesday. So we went higher in the pre-market. The high there was 541.24. Missed that high, came up a little short, and then we pulled back into this kind of consolidation range that we've been in. For me, at this point, this looks like the 55 EMA is consolidating. Once it comes in here, probably tomorrow or the Friday, then we're probably going to see that pullback. And I would expect that to pull back down to that 9 EMA on the daily chart, which is currently sitting at the 532.33 area. 533.17 is the level. You got some trend in there like I talked about, but either way, this looks like consolidation on the NASDAQ. Moving over to the Tasty charts here, you can see we're still actually in bearish conditions on the hourly chart. Your trailing stop is still that 541.72 area, just barely below these all-time highs that we saw on the start of that Tuesday session. Missed it just barely during that session and then pulled back, and now we're kind of in this trading range, grinding right on top of that 34 EMA, which is at 538.66. You can see the pullback that we saw here to the 55 EMA, pulled back there, rallied up, holding here mid-trading range. Upper ATR band, if we get there, 542. Lower ATR band, 535.34. So that would be the trading range if you get there. That's usually where you try to take some profits. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, you can see the Russell was relatively unchanged on the day, right around that 226.02 level. We got a rally into the end of the session like everything else, but then after hours gave it all back. We're bouncing just slightly, just above that 226 level. You can see it here on the daily chart. It was actually down about 1/3%, and you can see the after hours move about 30 cents there. Still holding the level 226, like I said, but either way, not a whole lot of anything. The fact that we came up and touched the 21 EMA on the daily chart and then rejected from there, not super great. You can see it here, momentum basically zero, RSI just barely below the SMA, so not super great on any of those. We're still well below that 55 EMA also, so at best this is sideways consolidation right at the level 226, and then you can see the Dow here actually had a little bit of a gain, 75 cents, after hours down about 40, so either way, still in the same trading range we've been in. It looked like a nice close, but again, that after hours not so great. Momentum stepped slightly to bullish. RSI still slightly bearish here below that SMA. So either way, still looks like a consolidation on both of these. Moving over to the Mag 7. Mag 7 was basically flat, up just 7 cents or 0.02%. And after hours, obviously, we gave all of that back. Momentum flat, RSI basically the same as what we saw on the Dow charts. Still in the same trading range we've been in, still waiting for this 55-day EMA to consolidate. And I believe once this consolidates here and starts to trend into this 236 area, which it seems to step up about 50 cents each day, so it's got another couple of days here before we get to that 326 area, and then once we get there, I'm expecting this to roll to the downside. We just haven't seen any kind of conviction to the upside. Still well off of the highs. We had a lower high here, still in the same consolidation range. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. Apple basically unchanged, just 40 cents on the day, still holding the level. Did hold a slightly higher low here, so you like to see that. Momentum relatively bullish. And then looking at Microsoft, got a big jump on that Quantum chip as I would have expected. Nice little bump there. 1.25% back above the level 413.36. So if you bought the level, that's your trailing stop here. 413.36. If it can hold the level, you're looking for a push to that 429, 430 area. I think that actually could be a good trade off of this little news catalyst that we're getting. I don't know if it's going to hold. I'm not sure it would be a long-term trade for me, but we've been in this consolidation for a while. You do have a pretty solid low. We're back above a trading level, so I could absolutely see why you'd be a little bit bullish here, at least to this maybe 422 area. Moving over to Tesla and NVDA. Tesla had a nice little up day as well, 1.8%, held the level 355.03. As soon as we got above that, we started to push pretty aggressive. Missed the level just a little bit at 369.33. This is still a downtrend, so you got the 921 and 55 EMAs all stacked. But in terms of a short-term retracement, you got the 21 EMA as your target. That would be 379.98. Obviously, that'll continue to downtrend over the next couple days. Your short-term target would be 369. So we'll see. Right now, momentum a little bit bullish, RSI a little bit bullish. Short-term, Tesla says we should go a little bit higher, and then you got NVIDIA finding resistance at that 140.76 level. So touched it yesterday, rejected, touched it again today, rejected. So for now, that's your resistance, looking for a little bit of a retracement of this pretty aggressive up move that we had from 3 February right to the highs on 18 February. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, you can see staples continues to do really, really well here. 0.8 to the upside, breaking back above that 81.18 level, looking for 81.85. We'll see if it can continue to go. Right now, I think it'll go. And then looking at discretionaries, down on the day, 0.06. So still very much a risk-off market. And the fact that this is still risk-off here for me says we are in a consolidation high, and I think that there's some weakness to come. We just haven't seen it follow through quite yet. We're still in this kind of consolidation phase. Then moving over here to transports and oil and gas, you can see transports has now double topped. We got a bit of a pullback here, 1.27%. Momentum stepping down, RSI stepping down. So that's a little bit of a leading indicator of some potential pullbacks to come. And you got oil and gas continuing to run. We have a 4-day run here to the 140.88 level. If you can break this level, then you're looking for the 145.92 level, which was the previous top here. And you can see we gapped to that level, retested, and then pulled back pretty deeply once that level broke here. So critical level here, 145.92. I think if we can get the break, we can get a nice continuation to that level, or potentially even a higher high. If you got the low, higher low, high, maybe higher high here at 154. And if energy prices are continuing to run, that is usually not a great sign for the economy. Then moving over here to breadth. Breadth did actually continue to improve. So we did get the breakout yesterday, got the continuation here, still looking for that retest of the 21 on the 20-day. That is at 63.66, so expecting at least a little bit more upside. And then you got 50-day, another update there, right to the highs that we saw on 27 as well as 30 January. If we break out, we hit the trend, then maybe could get a breakout through to that 68.66 area. If we hit this and reject, that's going to be not so great. Momentum right now, a little bit bullish. RSI, a little bit bullish. Honestly, this kind of looks like a little bit of a double top forming. And if that ends up coming to fruition tomorrow, that's going to be very concerning for markets. But for right now, looks a little bit bullish in my opinion. Moving over to the dollar. Dollar continues to find a little bit of strength. You can see it here. Big wicks to the upside. Held the 21 EMA on this retest. Continuation higher. Waiting to see if the 21 holds again on the hourly. Current level is 106.84. So we're finding some highs off of that. This is a downtrend. You got 9, 21, and 55 EMAs. We are coming off of a little bit of support though. So maybe we come into the zone. Then we reject. That would take you up to 107.86. We'll see if it can touch that zone. Maybe break through. Is this just a short-term retracement? It looks like a little bit more than that with a low, lower low here, high, lower high, potentially. Are we going to get another lower high here? Continuation lower, potentially. Right now, though, short term, it looks a little bullish. Moving over to bonds. Bonds caught a little bit of a bounce here, 8 cents on J&K. Gave that back after hours, but relatively unchanged there. Momentum slightly bullish, RSI slightly bullish. Still not seeing a ton of movement on J&K. Makes sense based on what we saw on Fear and Greed. And then TLT up just 11 cents. After hours down about 3 cents. So relatively unchanged, but it's holding in the same zone, the zone that we've been talking about. Still think this is the low. Still think we have a higher low potentially here. And I did buy a little bit more on bonds. And I think bonds are probably going to continue to do well, especially with the bond auction that we saw. Actually came down a little bit from the previous number. So overall, I think we're in a stable spot for bonds. Moving over to the VIX here just for a second, you can see we wicked the 21 EMA and then pulled back negative on the day, still holding this level here at 14.7. So no change to the thesis. We're still in this kind of consolidation, stuck between the EMAs in that 14.7 area. Still slightly elevated, momentum still slightly stepping to bullish, but RSI not so much, still wicking off of rejection. Again, looks like consolidation pretty much like everything else. Moving over to my accounts, I did not do much of anything here today. All I did was roll out my IWM call to the next day at 226 for 92 cents. You can see it was down 83 cents. And that in the after hours is actually a little bit lower at 226. So that makes sense. That's why you're seeing the 119 to the downside, and I lost about $21 on the day. It says I was positive, but I think I was relatively unchanged. Just sitting on these covered calls for the next couple days, just continuing to collect credit on that covered call for the Russell in this consolidation. Markets just don't have any clear direction, so it's a pretty good time to be a covered call seller, and that's what I'm doing right now. Let me know down in the comments section what you thought of the markets today. Are we going to continue to higher highs on the SPY, or is the NASDAQ going to drag us down? What do you think of the quantum chip from Microsoft? Is that going to generate some gains for Microsoft, or are they going to be short term and it's going to be a selling opportunity? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.